Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Dr. Leisa Armstrong. I'm from Perth, Western Australia, and I lead a e-agriculture research group at Edith Cowan University. This presentation is done in collaboration with Dean Deepaveen, who's a scientist in Western Australia, agricultural scientist, and Miss Nikita Gandhi, who's sitting over there as the co-author from Mumbai University. And the title is The Use of ICT in Agricultural Value Chains to Improve Food Security, and looking at it from an Australian and Indian perspective. New to value chains, so my background is as an agricultural scientist, crop agronomist, and I recently, in the last 10 years, have moved into computer science. Down. What I'd like to talk about today is how we can use ICT tools such as data mining to assist in ways to optimise the grains value chain, and how we can investigate some of the factors which are going to impinge on that value chain to improve the efficiency of it. So we know that ICT can have a lot of implications in how it can improve our response to climate change, how it can reduce our problems with food security and water security problems, how it can impact on improving agricultural production. So we've had in the last session some examples of that. What we were trying to do as a little exercise in this research paper was to investigate how we can use data mining to search through different websites to get information on value chains, and how we can basically map the value chain and all the different components of it using a data mining technique. So value chains are basically a sequence of activities that are undertaken to create value or to improve value add to a product from farm to market. There's been a number of studies which have looked at the issues related to value chains in Australia and in agricultural value chains, and there's a few examples there. In terms of the agricultural value chains approach, the need to understand the infrastructure, the resources that the governments need to develop these supply chains to become more effective. That's the goal that most governments are looking at, both in Australia and in developing, well, Australia as a developed country, as well as developing countries such as India. So in developed countries, the consumer is pretty much God, and they get to choose what product they want, and the food retailers basically dictate what kind of products they require and the requirements. The quality issue is very important in Australia in developing good quality post-harvest products. In developing countries, the food producers often claim that food consumers are difficult to understand, and there's such a variety and differentiation of food products, and there's a kind of misleading approach as to how the food producers and the governments are going to allocate those resources. We've already talked about problems with the amount of food wastage. So we have looked at, based on application or research paper, we've kind of mapped the grain supply chain for Australia from consumer to the market, and worked out kind of how ICT fits into those that particular supply chain. I'm just skipping through because we don't have much time. And we've also kind of mapped, using this kind of mapping software, to look at the different players in the supply chain, from the consumer, the retailer, the processor, the transport, the grain merchant, the grain producer. So the idea of this is that we can use, if we can create a framework, a supply chain framework, then we can use that to kind of make our process of understanding that supply chain more efficient. We can use data mining to assist in that. So that's basically what we were trying to do. We used a situational analysis and pretty much trawled through using Google search all the various papers and other resources that we could find on value chains, and tried to work out an actual framework, a supply chain framework. So I'm going very fast.
You don't have the 5 minutes more.
Yeah, that's fine. So basically our results were, it's preliminary, we were really just having an investigation as to how we can use data mining to work out the framework, the supply chain framework that was possible. We collected a lot of resources and then tried to map that and see whether that actually mapped to previous supply chains. At the moment we've pretty much just done Australian supply chain, but I was just talking to our previous speaker in our last session, and I think we'll get together and work on together from my side in terms of Australia and India. So we used internet-based resources to do this, and we all know that internet-based resources are not always reliable, but it was just a preliminary investigation. So this is the basic groupings that we got based on the data mining that we did, the text mining of the information. So you can see that we basically made a supply chain map out of that, taking into account the various types of agricultural information and the supply chain based on a supply chain that's already been developed. So the key findings was that it was very much preliminary investigation, but we do think that data mining has some part in being able to help in mapping this supply chain issues and optimising the supply chain, and also in the way of being able to deal with the information related to the supply chain, to optimise the efficiency of that information that's related to each part of the supply chain. So that's, and other things we were looking at was that we need to look at things in terms of a more granular kind of approach, and look at things from a more regional or district kind of level, rather than just a state or national level. So we can look at things in terms of the supply chain on that more localised level. And I think data mining, these kind of approaches can help. So that's my presentation. It's pretty much just a thought-provoking kind of presentation, just that this is basically what we were trying to do, just do a bit of research and see where it would end up.